It was the bringing together of two ideas really for me, because if I was going to do Swan Lake at all, it had to be a really new way of interpreting it, and the idea of male swans really gave me the enthusiasm to want to do it, and thought it would do really interesting things for the piece and the story. And when I made the piece 15 years ago, there was a lot of royal scandal going on in the press at the time, so it was the marriage of the idea of male swans, the idea of a prince being married off to a suitable princess and stuff. Those two ideas were the things that made me want to interpret Swan Lake for an audience for today. Well, it's odd, isn't it? When you watch this piece, you do, at the end of it, you feel like you've watched a musical in some ways, because some of it doesn't look like a classical ballet. Some of the dancers don't look that way. Some of the scenes are very not what you would expect. There's no point work in it, only one tiny bit. And I think it's what a musical usually does is it's quite joyous and quite life-affirming, and it has that aspect to it. But also musical theatre can be quite emotional and moving, genuinely moving. And I think that this piece catches you by surprise. By the end of it, you find yourself in tears, and where you've been laughing a few minutes earlier. So it's got all the emotions, and I think it goes for big emotions. And big feeling, and I think that's why it's captured the imagination of a big audience. Well, the dancers who do the swans are obviously all male, and they need to have a combination of classical and contemporary movement. It's no good just being a classical dancer. They need to have that fluidity that a contemporary modern dancer has. So it's a mixture of the two, quite hard to find, and animalistic quality, quite masculine, quite people who are interested in performing, in acting, as well as just dancing, who like creating a character. Even each swan has its own character. I don't want them to all look the same and be the same. The creatures aren't like that. And because we looked at real swans for the choreography, that's where the ideas came from, how a swan actually moves. Well, I think with Billy Elliot, they were just looking for an end for the film that would make him feel like he'd gone on being the rebel that he was early on in the film, that he was this young boy who, against all the odds, became a dancer. And rather than ending up in one of the big ballet companies, that he was doing something a bit different, which at the time felt like this Swan Lake. And Steve Daldry, the director, said that's got to be the end for him. He's got to end up in your Swan Lake. So it's been great for us, because around the world people know the film, and it's a way of people identifying the piece as well, and they know what it is. Yeah, the music is all Ciaikovski, in more or less the right order, and it's not been messed with. The music is like my script, it's like my Bible for the piece. It's so amazing. It's the most incredible music ever written to dance to and to tell a story to, and that has a big part to play in how emotional people get about the piece. Well, yeah, there are a lot of references towards a royal family. I'll say a royal family. It's not the royal family. It's a combination of characters all put together. So our queen I would say, is not really like our Queen Elizabeth. She's more like her sister, Princess Margaret, I've always thought, who wasn't the queen, of course. And the prince is a combination of princes through the years in some ways, because many of our royal princes have had problems along the way of, trying to live up to the role of being a prince and possible king. And I'm actually quite sympathetic towards it, and the royal family do actually like the piece. They've never publicly said it, but I think secretly they find it a very sympathetic portrayal of what royal life can be like. and they really like it, and they all have it on DVD apparently. Well, in this particular show, I got very inspired by Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds as a movie that I'd loved since I was a kid. Actually, I'd always known about that movie, and the idea of birds attacking, strangely, it felt like it was very much in Ciaikovski's music. It's got a sort of violence in it towards the end, which is sort of overwhelming, and you've got to go there in a way. It has to become quite violent. So that film really came into my mind. And the other thing is lots of Hollywood MGM musicals I've always been inspired by. So there are sections that feel a little like that, or very Broadway style choreography, as well as the more lyrical contemporary swan choreography. I like audiences to feel it for themselves, and that's one of the great things about dance and non-verbal theatre, is that there's nobody telling you what's going on. You've got to think it for yourself. I always think it's the opposite of reading a novel. When you're reading a book, you're imagining what those people look like, and you're imagining the places in your head. This is almost the opposite. You're imagining what they're saying, and you're imagining what they're thinking, and it's your story you're telling yourself, which I think is really exciting. And I don't mind that people have different interpretations of the story. It's all valid.